So what really happened at the Tower of Siloam? Why does this seemingly forgotten episode in the biblical records continue to resonate through the centuries with a timeless force? Perhaps you've heard of this tragedy, briefly mentioned in Luke chapter 13, but have you grasped the full spiritual and historical depth hidden behind these verses? Have you ever experienced this, reading a biblical passage and feeling that there's something much bigger there, a powerful message that lies between the lines? The Tower of Siloam is not just another building that collapsed in ancient Jerusalem. This event carries layers of meaning that touch upon issues of suffering, divine justice, repentance, and the very nature of human existence. While 18 people lost their lives under the rubble of that structure, Jesus used this tragedy to challenge the religious mindset of his time in a way that still provokes us today. And here's the most fascinating part. The story is much deeper than it appears in the biblical texts, you know. When we investigate the historical context of first-century Jerusalem, we discover that Siloam was much more than just a geographical location. It was a strategic point, a vital water reservoir for the city, surrounded by buildings and watchtowers that played crucial roles in daily life. But what led to the collapse of that particular tower? Was it a natural accident, a structural failure, or something else? Stay with me until the end, because these questions will lead you to a completely new understanding of how we interpret tragedy and suffering. What you are about to discover may surprise you. Jesus did not use the incident at the Tower of Siloam to offer simplistic answers about why bad things happen to seemingly innocent people. On the contrary, he turned the question on its head, transforming that moment of morbid curiosity into an urgent call for personal transformation. While his listeners expected him to confirm their beliefs about sin and divine punishment, Christ challenged the entire thought framework of that time. Have you ever found yourself trying to understand why tragedies happen? Why some people suffer, while others seem to pass unscathed through life's dangers? The answer Jesus offered that day in Jerusalem continues to challenge our own attempts to categorize human suffering into comfortable boxes of cause and effect. And there is an archaeological and historical detail about that tower that completely changes how we should read this passage. Get ready, because we're going to delve into historical evidence, cultural context, and theological interpretations that will reveal why the Tower of Siloam represents much more than a tragic accident. But before we continue this journey together, I need to ask you something that makes all the difference. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel, now is the perfect time. Click the subscribe button and activate the bell, because every week we bring you content like this, biblical analyses that go beyond the surface, that make you think, question, and grow spiritually. When you subscribe, you're saying, I want more of this, I value this type of reflection, and that's no small thing. In an era where superficial content dominates, you're choosing to go deeper, and that deserves to be celebrated. Liking is also essential. It seems like a small gesture, but it tells the algorithm that this video needs to reach more people. Imagine how many people out there are searching for answers, trying to better understand the scriptures, and could benefit from exactly this type of content we are building together. You're not just liking a video, you're becoming part of a community that values knowledge, depth, and truth. Now let's resume our investigation into Siloam, because what you're about to discover about the historical context of that tower will completely change your perspective. Andy want to take you directly to the dusty streets of first-century Jerusalem, because understanding where Siloam was located completely changes how you will see this story. Siloam was not just any place, lost on the outskirts of the city. It was a strategic, vital region, pulsating with both practical and spiritual significance for all the people of Israel. Imagine a source of crystal-clear water gushing forth in the middle of the rocky Judean desert. That was Siloam. In a land where water literally represented the difference between life and death, this reservoir became much more than a convenience. It was a symbol of divine provision, of survival, of national identity. The geographical location of Siloam reveals fascinating layers of hidden truth. Situated in the southern part of the city of David, near the Kidron Valley, this region held the famous Pool of Siloam, fed by the waters of the Gihon Spring through an ingeniously constructed tunnel built by King Hezekiah centuries earlier. This tunnel, which you can still visit today, was a masterpiece of ancient engineering, carved through more than 500 meters of solid rock to ensure water during military sieges. Think about it. Each drop that flowed into Siloam carried the memory of strategic decisions, of preparation for war, of kings who fought for the survival of their people. But the impact of Siloam transcended the military aspect. It was the place where purification rituals took place, where pilgrims washed themselves before ascending to the temple, where healings were proclaimed. Remember the story of the man born blind whom Jesus told to wash in the waters of Siloam. It was no coincidence. That place carried a profound symbolic weight of restoration, transformation, and spiritual renewal. The surrounding towers protected not only water, but an entire religious and cultural mentality that defined who the Jews were during that turbulent historical moment under Roman occupation. So, when that particular tower collapsed on 18 people, it wasn't just a random construction tragedy. It was a literal and symbolic shock to one of the most sensitive points of Jewish identity. And here's the detail no one told you. The buildings around Siloam were constantly under renovation and expansion due to the ambitious projects of Herod and his successors. These works involved forced labor, questionable materials, and a political haste that often ignored basic safety. The journey to understanding this tragedy necessarily involves looking at the political and religious backdrop of that turbulent period. Comment below. Did you already know that Siloam was so strategically important to Israel? And this leads us directly to one of the most intriguing questions surrounding this episode. What exactly was this tower? Why was it there? What was its true function in the complex and tense urban landscape of Jerusalem under Roman rule? The answer will surprise you, because even the most renowned historians and archaeologists still debate this intensely. There is no absolute consensus, and this lack of certainty opens doors to fascinating revelations about how we interpret not only the physical structure, but the very spiritual significance of the event. Some theories suggest that the tower served a military surveillance function. Consider this. Siloam was located in a vulnerable area of the city, near valleys that could serve as a route for invaders. An observation tower there would make perfect strategic sense, allowing guards to monitor suspicious movements and alert the city to imminent dangers. This mentality of constant defense was part of Jerusalem's DNA, a city that had been besieged, conquered, and rebuilt multiple times over the centuries. Each stone of that tower could tell stories of night watches, of nervous soldiers observing the horizon, of decisions that determined life or death. But there is another, equally compelling possibility. The tower could be a civil structure, part of the aqueduct and reservoir system that kept Siloam functioning. Some ancient towers served to regulate water pressure, control the flow between different levels of the city, or even protect workers who maintained the complex hydraulic systems. In that case, the collapse would not be just a random tragedy, but possibly the result of corrosion, poor maintenance, or even sabotage amidst the political tensions of the time. The behind-the-scenes workings of this construction involved contractors, makeshift engineers, and a corrupt bureaucracy that frequently cut costs in the name of quick profits. Some even suggest that the tower had a mixed function, serving simultaneously as a defensive point and a support structure for the water supply. This ambiguity perfectly reflects the multifaceted nature of life in first-century Jerusalem. Everything had layers, everything served multiple purposes, everything carried simultaneous meanings, and here is the provocative detail that changes everything. Regardless of its original function, that tower became a symbol in the hands of Jesus. He transformed a physical structure of stone and mortar into a powerful metaphor for the fragility of human existence and the urgency of inner transformation. The impact of this mental repositioning was devastating for the religious mindset of the time, which sought simple answers to complex questions about suffering and divine justice. The hidden truth here is that perhaps the tower's exact function is less important than what it represented in the collective imagination of that people. But let me tell you now about the moment that changed everything. The precise instant when centuries-old stones yielded to gravity, when the impossible became reality before the eyes of dozens of powerless witnesses. Luke records this event in chapter 13 of his Gospel with an almost disturbing brevity, but behind those few words lies a human drama of immense proportions. Imagine the scene with me. It's an ordinary day in Jerusalem. People circulate through the narrow streets, merchants shout their wares, children play among the shadows of the buildings. The Mediterranean sun beats down strongly on the white stones of the city, and then, without warning, a deafening roar tears through the air. The Tower of Siloam, that structure which had withstood storms, minor earthquakes, and decades of use, simply collapsed. It wasn't a gradual collapse. There was no time for evacuation or cries of warning. It was instantaneous, brutal, definitive. Tons of hewn stone, wooden beams, and mortar plummeted in a suffocating cloud of dust and debris. 18 people who were in the wrong place at the wrong time were crushed under the weight of that ruin. 18 lives abruptly interrupted, 18 families destroyed, 18 futures extinguished in a matter of seconds. The silence that followed the initial roar must have been deafening in a different way, that heavy silence laden with shock and horror, when even the birds stopped singing. The decisions that led those 18 people to be in that exact place at that precise moment will forever remain a mystery. Were they workers, pilgrims, local residents simply passing by? The biblical text doesn't offer these details, and perhaps that's intentional. The absence of specific identities transforms those victims into universal symbols of human vulnerability. It could be you, it could be me, it could be any one of us at any point in our journey. This hidden truth about the randomness of the tragedy is what made the event so disturbing for Jesus' contemporaries. News of the disaster spread rapidly through the city, as all news of tragedy does. And with it came the inevitable questions, the speculations, the desperate attempts to find meaning in the chaos. The prevailing mentality at the time had a ready answer for this type of event: sin and divine punishment. Those 18 people must have done something terribly wrong to deserve such a horrible end, or so most thought. But Jesus was about to demolish this simplistic logic with the same force that brought down that tower, provoking a radical transformation in how we understand suffering, justice, and spiritual responsibility. And can you imagine the atmosphere that gripped Jerusalem in the days and weeks following the collapse? The atmosphere became heavy, dense, almost suffocating. Fear spread through the alleys and markets like an invisible plague. People began to whisper in corners, avoiding speaking too loudly about what had happened, as if their own words could attract a similar curse upon their heads. The collective mentality of that time interpreted tragedies of this magnitude as unmistakable signs of divine displeasure. If 18 people died in such a brutal way, surely God was sending a message to someone, or so the religious people of the time thought. Rumors spread with alarming speed. Some said that those victims were secret collaborators of the Romans, traitors who deserved their terrible fate. Others whispered that they were notorious sinners, people involved in practices forbidden by Jewish law. There were even those who speculated about pagan rituals being secretly performed near Siloam. The hidden truth is that no one really knew anything concrete about the victims, but that didn't stop each person from projecting their own anxieties and judgments onto those dead. It was more comfortable to believe that the victims were guilty of something than to face the terrifying reality that tragedies can happen to anyone at any time for no apparent reason. Political interpretations also swirled behind the scenes. Some saw the collapse as a bad omen for the Roman occupation, a sign that the gods were displeased with the pagan presence in the Holy Land. Others, more pragmatic or perhaps more cowardly, interpreted the event as a warning not to rebel against Rome, as if heaven were saying that resistance was futile and dangerous. Each faction, each religious and political group, tried to shape the narrative of the disaster to serve its own agendas. The impact of this tragedy transcended immediate suffering and became a tool for social manipulation. But amidst all these theological debates and political speculations, something was overlooked, something profoundly human and devastating: the real pain of broken families. Think of the mothers who lost children, the husbands who would never see their wives again, the children orphaned in an instant. These people weren't interested in debates about divine justice or prophetic signs. They just wanted their loved ones back. The grieving journey of these families unfolded amidst the callous noise of religious people who used the deaths of their loved ones as ammunition for their own arguments. And it is precisely at this point, at this painful intersection between theological speculation and genuine human suffering, that Jesus chose to intervene with words that would cut through all layers of hypocrisy and ignorance. It is precisely in this chaotic context of speculation and judgment that Jesus enters the conversation in an absolutely revolutionary way. Someone in the crowd mentions the tower incident, probably expecting the master to confirm the traditional interpretation of sin and punishment. But Jesus does something completely unexpected, something that must have left his listeners speechless. He turns the matter upside down with a provocative question. Do you think that these 18 people were more guilty than all the other inhabitants of Jerusalem? His own answer is categorical and surprising. I tell you, no. With these few words, Jesus demolished the entire thought structure that underpinned the religious mentality of the time. The impact of this statement cannot be underestimated. Jesus was directly challenging the dominant theology, the one that saw each tragedy as specific divine punishment for specific sins. He was saying, clearly and bluntly, that those people did not die because they were worse than others. Their death was not a personalized divine judgment. This was a hidden truth that no one wanted to hear because it destabilized the psychological comfort of believing that bad things only happen to bad people. If Jesus was right, then everyone was vulnerable. Everyone was just a moment away from their own mortality. But here's the crucial point, the revelation that transforms everything. Jesus doesn't stop at deconstruction. He doesn't simply dismantle the misinterpretation and leave people adrift. He offers a new perspective, a new path to understanding. But unless you repent, you will all likewise perish, he concludes. Do you see the genius of this shift in focus? Jesus transforms a discussion about the past and the destiny of others into an urgent call for present decisions and personal transformation. He takes that horrific tragedy and repositions it as an existential warning for all who are alive and can still choose to change. The authority with which Jesus speaks does not come from theological speculation or traditional rabbinical interpretation. It comes from a deep understanding of human nature and spiritual reality. He is not interested in explaining why those 18 people died. He is interested in using that moment of collective shock to awaken people to their own spiritual journey. The message is clear and unsettling. Death can come to anyone at any time, but the relevant question is not why it came to those people, but whether you are prepared for when it comes to you. This radical shift in perspective from judging others to personal reflection is at the heart of Christ's teaching on the Tower of Siloam. But there's something even more fascinating when we begin to unearth the historical background of this event. Archaeology and records from the time reveal a panorama that adds entire layers of meaning to the tragedy. First-century Jerusalem was not exactly a model of excellence in civil construction, quite the contrary. The city was undergoing a period of frenetic expansion, with ambitious architectural projects being undertaken simultaneously by different authorities, each with their own political and financial agendas. All this haste had a price, and that price was often paid in blood. The structures surrounding Siloam, including that fateful tower, were part of a complex system of aqueducts and fortifications that were constantly being renovated and expanded. Here's a detail that completely changes our understanding of the context. Pontius Pilate, the same Roman procurator who would later condemn Jesus to crucifixion, was involved in controversial infrastructure projects in the region. Historical records indicate that Pilate confiscated funds from the temple treasury to finance the construction of an aqueduct that would bring water to Jerusalem. This decision provoked violent protests and brutal repression by Roman forces. The hidden truth here is provocative. There is a real possibility that the Tower of Siloam was part of these questionably funded projects. If this is true, the collapse would not have been merely a random accident, but a direct consequence of corruption, political haste, and disregard for the safety of workers and ordinary citizens. Inferior materials, forced labor, inadequate supervision, impossible deadlines, all these factors create the perfect scenario for structural disasters. The mentality of the Roman administration was clear. Quick results mattered more than human lives, especially when those lives belonged to Jews under occupation. Archaeological excavations in the Siloam region have revealed evidence of hasty construction from that period, with inadequate foundations and techniques that compromised long-term stability. Some historians suggest that smaller earthquakes, common in the region, could have weakened already compromised structures. Others point to the use of inferior quality mortar, a common way of diverting resources in public works. The impact of this reality on our understanding of the event is immense. Those 18 people may have been victims not only of chance, but of a corrupt system that valued power and money above human dignity. And here is the disturbing irony that connects everything. Jesus used a tragedy possibly caused by Roman greed and incompetence to teach about personal spiritual responsibility. He took the result of corrupt political decisions and transformed it into a mirror in which each listener needed to see themselves. This transformation of a discussion about external guilt into a call for internal change is typical of Christ's revolutionary method. When we delve into the symbolic layers of this story, we discover that the Tower of Siloam functions as a powerful multidimensional metaphor that transcends its immediate historical meaning. Think about it. A tower is built to last, to be solid, to convey security and permanence. It represents strength, vigilance, protection against external threats. But when that tower collapses, all that symbolism is dramatically reversed. What should be synonymous with stability becomes an emblem of human fragility, of the illusion of control that we cultivate so carefully in our lives. That structure of stone and mortar that seemed as solid as the mountain itself revealed itself to be as vulnerable as anything made by human hands. The hidden truth in this symbolism is disturbing. We too build towers. We build towers of financial security, social reputation, professional achievements, and relationships that we imagine to be indestructible. We invest years, even decades, erecting these internal and external structures that give us a sense of permanence and meaning. But Jesus is telling us through this episode that all these towers can collapse in an instant. The fragility of human existence is not the exception, it is the rule. And to pretend otherwise, that our plans and constructions make us immune to mortality and chaos, is to live in dangerous denial. There's another fascinating symbolic level here: the collective consequences. Those 18 people didn't die alone in some private accident. They died together, in a public space, victims of a shared structure. This points to a profound spiritual reality that our modern individualistic mindset prefers to ignore. We are all connected, all vulnerable to the same forces, all subject to systemic collapses that go beyond our personal choices. The human journey is not just individual, it's collective. We live in social, political, and spiritual structures that can sustain or crush any one of us, regardless of our individual merits. And here is the most penetrating impact of the tower's symbolism: the urgency of inner transformation. Jesus wasn't being morbid or pessimistic in bringing this story to light. He was being radically realistic. His message is, you have time now, at this moment, to make decisions that truly matter. We don't know when our own tower will collapse, but we know it will. The question isn't if, but when. And in the face of this inevitable reality, what truly matters? To continue building towers that will crumble, or to invest in an inner transformation that transcends physical fragility. This teaching continues to resonate through the centuries because it touches on something universal in human experience. We live between the illusion of permanence and the reality of impermanence, between our grand plans and our fundamental vulnerability. The Tower of Siloam forces us to confront this tension without the simplistic theological comforts we prefer. So let's bring this ancient story into the here and now, because if there's one thing the Tower of Siloam teaches us, it's that the distance of 2,000 years doesn't diminish the relevance of this message in the slightest. We live in a time where the illusion of control has reached almost absurd levels. We have apps that monitor every aspect of our lives, insurance for practically any eventuality, meticulously planned career paths, and health routines optimized down to the last detail. We build digital and physical fortresses around ourselves, believing that with sufficient planning and adequate resources, we can shield ourselves from chaos. But the hidden truth remains unchanged. We are as vulnerable today as those 18 people were on that fateful day in Siloam. The responsibility that Jesus calls us to embrace is not about avoiding external tragedies, because that is beyond our control. It is about taking full responsibility for the internal decisions we make while we still have time. Every day that passes without real transformation is a lost day, not necessarily because death is near, but because authentic life is being wasted. How many people do you know who live on autopilot, indefinitely postponing the changes they know they need to make, the relationships they need to mend, the truths they need to face? The mentality of spiritual procrastination dominates our culture, and the Tower of Siloam stands as an ancient monument shouting, "There is no guarantee of tomorrow." The purpose of this message is not to paralyze us with fear, but to awaken us to the urgency of living with intention and meaning. Jesus is not trying to frighten us into conversion through threats of sudden death. He is inviting us to recognize the preciousness of each moment and to act according to that awareness. When we truly understand that our existence is finite and fragile, every decision gains weight. Every conversation potentially becomes the last. Every opportunity for love and forgiveness reveals itself as the treasure it always was. This is not a morbid perspective, it is liberating. The transformative impact of this story lies in its ability to convert collective pain into personal learning. Those 18 victims did not die in vain if their tragedy awakens us to our own journey. Every time we remember Siloam, we are invited to pause and ask, am I living the life that truly matters, or am I just busy building towers that will inevitably crumble? Am I investing in what transcends or in what perishes? Am I postponing crucial conversations, necessary reconciliations, and unavoidable changes? The most powerful revelation here is that genuine transformation never begins tomorrow. It always begins now, in this very moment, when you recognize your need for it. The foundations of a meaningful life are not built on dramatic future moments, but on the seemingly small choices of each present day. Write this down. I need to rethink my priorities. And here we arrive at the beating heart of everything we have explored so far. The Tower of Siloam, when truly understood in all its historical, theological, and existential dimensions, reveals itself as much more than a tragic episode recorded in a few lines of the Gospel of Luke. This story is a permanent invitation to full awareness, an urgent call to awaken from the spiritual slumber that makes us live as if we had all the time in the world. The stones that fell that day in Jerusalem continue to fall metaphorically around us, reminding us that seemingly solid structures can crumble without warning, that the security we so desperately seek is fundamentally illusory. The hidden truth that Jesus unearthed from those ruins wasn't about the guilt or innocence of the victims. It was about the radical responsibility each of us carries to live authentically while we still can. It's not about living with paralyzing fear of death, but about living with an energizing awareness of life. When we genuinely internalize that this present moment is all we have guaranteed, the way we make choices is completely transformed. That argument you're putting off, that forgiveness you're withholding, that change you know is necessary but keep procrastinating, all of this takes on a new urgency under the light of the Tower of Siloam. The impact of this message transcends centuries because it touches on the universal dilemma of human existence. We live between the desire for permanence and the reality of impermanence. We build, accumulate, and plan as if we were eternal, but deep down we know we are not. And Jesus, by using this specific tragedy, forces us to confront this fundamental contradiction. He does not offer false guarantees of security or empty promises that good people will be protected from disasters. He offers something far more valuable and far more uncomfortable, the naked truth that we will all perish, and that in the face of this certainty, the only question that matters is whether we are living in a way that aligns with what we truly value. The journey we have taken from that initial roar in Siloam to this moment of personal reflection is not merely historical or intellectual. It is profoundly transformative if we allow it to be. The behind-the-scenes story reveals layers of meaning, ranging from political and architectural issues to the depths of the human soul. And in each layer we discover the same persistent invitation. Wake up, take responsibility, live with intention, transform yourself while there is still time. Because the only truly tragic ruin is not that of stone towers, but of lives wasted on superficialities while precious time slips through our fingers. The Tower of Siloam remains as a silent witness through the millennia, asking each generation, what are you waiting for? If you've made it this far, you know this wasn't just another superficial biblical analysis. We dove deep, unearthed truths that are rarely explored, and connected an ancient story to your real life right now. And if this kind of content resonates with you, if you value reflections that go beyond the obvious and make you truly think, then subscribe to the channel. Every week I bring you this deep dive into stories, teachings, and contexts that transform the way you see the scriptures, and your own life. And look, if this journey through the Tower of Siloam touched you in any way, leave a comment here. This message was for me. I want to know that you were here with me from beginning to end, that we made this discovery together. Your comments aren't just numbers, they create a community of people seeking depth and true truth. Leave a like too, because it shows that we're on the right track, that this content format, dense, rich, respectful of your intelligence, is worth continuing to produce. Each like is a vote of confidence in this different approach that we bring here, and there's a video here that perfectly complements what we discussed today. If the Tower of Siloam impacted you, this next topic will expand your understanding even further. Click and continue with me there, because this journey is just beginning.